Welcome to Cycling Demystified, brought to you by Foundation Bikefitr and Frequency Cycle Works, the podcast where we help you take your cycling to the next level by sharing the knowledge from experienced bike fitters, mechanics, and the hidden players within the bike industry.
Hey everyone, Wei from Foundation Bikefitr here. I was recently over at Eurobike, Europe's largest bike show, so I thought it would be fun to record a few conversations with fellow bike fitters and fit-related companies to bring you a selection of the latest fit ideas, trends and happenings from around the world. In this episode, you'll firstly hear from Stephan Drake, founder of Law, who are bringing an innovative 3D printed custom cycling shoe to the market, which will literally change the way that you pedal. Then in the second half, you'll hear from master bike fitter John Higgins, an Aussie who's made Salt Lake City his home and who's been fitting for over 17 years. We'll dive into how he got into fitting, how he's mentoring young fitters through his studio practice, and how he's been testing Law shoes, but just 1 foot at a time. So if you're interested in fitting, you're an aspiring fitter, want to know how to get into it, the route into bike fitting has been for some of us who've been in the game for a while, then listen on in. And if you're just interested in cycling shoes and how the latest tech can change the way that you pedal, then this one is for you. So listen on in and enjoy. Alright, so welcome to Cycling Demystified. We're at Eurobike and I'm sitting down at the Law booth with Stephan. So, I guess I should get you to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and why we should be listening to what you do.
Sure. Stephan Drake, co-founder of Law Cycle. And here at Eurobike, we're just debuting the Law 2 shoe, which we launched about a month ago. So,
awesome.
Excited to bring it to market.
Yeah, and it's you're getting some pretty good kind of reception here at the moment. Lots of people interested, especially with your scanning device, which seems to be putting people literally on a pedestal.
Yeah, You're almost like in a zoo or something with the. Yeah.
And I'm pretty excited about Law because I think there's two things. So I'm really excited about the concept of a cycling shoe that you guys are kind of trying to kind of remodel or change, but also in the way you're going about it. So the actual manufacturing technique, which is pretty unique as well. So
sure.
Can you tell us a little bit more for listeners maybe who haven't actually seen the shoe itself, what it is? It's not just any old shoe, is it?
No, it's So it's a fully digitally custom shoe. So it's built exactly to your foot, and as you mentioned, the process starts with a 3D scan of your foot, and then from there, there's a series of software algorithms that transform that scan into a file that gets outputted to a number of 3D printers to actually produce the shoe. So, I think the shoe, there's so much to talk about with it. Custom, I think what it immediately conjures better comfort. But within this product, we've also comfort to us equals performance and better biomechanics. So there's kind of like 3 aspects to this that we've been trying to solve for over the years, which is, 1, something that's comfortable, 2, something that's biomechanically optimized, that's much more efficient than a traditional shoe in terms of marrying itself with the biomechanics that are inherent to a cycling stroke, to a pedal stroke, and trying to optimize force transfer in a way that matches the way your body naturally moves in gait. Yeah. So there's a lot of features within the shoe that are designed around those 2 things. 1, to transfer force super efficiently, i.e. we bring the shoe very proximal to your foot, and then there's other parts of the shoe that are designed to completely relieve your foot and not have any pressure on the foot, such that it should feel like you're standing barefoot in your kitchen in the shoe, rather than having a device that constricts you or has uneven pressure across your foot, which equals pain and discomfort.
Yeah, for full disclosure, I've actually been testing a pair of Law 2s, which have been pretty phenomenal, just awesome, in terms of getting me to rethink how I should be pedaling. And it's pretty amazing how it kind of has changed kind of the feeling of kind of how pedaling is, and that's the really interesting part of it. Just through a bit of design itself, that you can change how the whole foot functions within the pedal stroke, and a lot of that is built around the ankle piece and kind of how high the shoe kind of comes. So it almost felt like I had to relearn how to kind of pedal when I've been testing it out. So tell us a little bit more about the kind of ankle design and where that came from.
So the where to start on that, but it's been a big journey.
Just high level.
Yeah, so basically, there's a few things like we realized that. Well, let me go back to just starting ground floor a normal shoe, right? Like a normal shoe is typically a stiff sole. It can be carbon, it can be a polymer, but the kind of best normal shoes are a stiff sole with either a microfiber upper and or a leather upper, and basically, my background is in skiing, so in skiing you use this plastic boot really as a lever to control the ski, and you use these mechanical advantages to gain more force over the ski, and really skiing is very similar to cycling in the sense that they're both based on human gait, and I mean all athletic movement is really. So what we realized was that in a normal cycling shoe, you're just giving up a lot of opportunity to transfer your own biomechanical energy back into the shoe and then into the pedals. So, there's just a lot of opportunity there to extend the drivetrain up into the shoe, and the place where you gain the most leverage is up in the upper dorsal, close to your ankles. So you do it in a couple ways. Like one, by creating stiffer panels that are custom to the foot in the upper dorsal, you create more ground reaction force. So your skeletal system is more energetically connected to the sole of the shoe, which transfers more energy. And then secondarily, in every cycling stroke, there's a good degree of dorsiflexion that happens at the top of the stroke. And then there's extension that happens at the bottom of the stroke. So by energetically connecting stiff panels on the front side of your ankles, essentially, that are a high modulus material connected to the plantar surface of the shoe, basically we're capturing that dorsiflexion force at the top of the stroke and kind of eliminating that traditional dead spot where in a normal cycling shoe there's no energy transfer. And then at the bottom of the stroke, similarly, those panels are also locking your calcaneus back into a custom rigid plantar shell, which gives you this tremendous sense of kind of drag at an additional lever that didn't exist before at the bottom of the stroke, because you have this tight connection now to a rigid surface, which you don't have in a normal cycling shoe. So it's really awesome. And I think that's, if we get people to think about that kind of ski boot or like a skate boot or something like that, there's a reason why they're all rigid. They're kind of built all the way up, like up to the shin most of the time, just to kind of get all that kind of energy transfer straight through the feet and into the skate or into the ski, in our case, into the pedals. And so, it's really exciting to see someone actually thinking about shoes in a kind of different kind of way. I think it seems
actually truly innovative, which is really exciting. So,
Yeah.
which is also why there's so many people around your stand at the moment as well. So,
yeah, it's I can just share an anecdote of like the R&D. I distinctly remember the first time we built a prototype shoe where we had this structure up, up on the upper dorsal part of the foot, and it was like this crazy just light. You took one pedal stroke and it was like, oh my God, there's a whole nother way to pedal the bike, and so the last few years we've just been pursuing that based on that initial experience of just like, whoa, like. The other thing I'll say, just going back to the explanation for the listeners, this is an analogy I often use, like describing why this shoe makes more power is, it's basically, you can imagine putting a wrench, or I guess we say wrench in the States, but a spanner, right?
Yeah.
So if you were to put a spanner on your spindle, and then like rotate, call it a foot wrench, for example, and something long enough to simulate the length of what a shoe would be, and then if you were to rotate that over
The pedal axle.
yeah, rotate it over the axle, you feel you have this tremendous lever versus holding the pedal itself.
Right.
And so really what this is like, it's an extended lever that really is an extension of your drivetrain, and I think that's where the real innovation is here. Is that most people, like I said earlier, conventional shoes are just these flat things with like soft uppers. But now we've created this additional arm for you to transfer biomechanical energy more efficiently into the drivetrain. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Just that kind of both the shoe is incredibly stiff itself, but incredibly comfortable because you're able to custom mold the shoe to the person itself. And that's why the scanning is really important. So,
yeah, and that, a quick note on that, like all these biomechanical power innovations, they're only really possible by making the shoe custom, because you are using harder materials. So if, for example, if you were just to use the same kind of power panels and geometry that we're using in a serially produced shoe, you can only ride it for like a minute, and then you would be crying to take them off because you'd be hitting all these tendons and sensitive places soft tissue where you don't want hard things to hit. And so making it individual to the user and very accurately individual is what enables all these additional features to sort of like work the way they do. So they're intertwined, really, the custom nature of it and the mechanical nature of it.
Would you say this has only been possible really through the advent of this kind of technology, the 3D printing, the kind of scanning?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's obvious, I think, to most, but like any serially produced product generally comes from a mold, and a mold is expensive to make. It takes a long time, and it's certainly not individualized. So in order for this ecosystem to work, you need to be in a moldless environment, and that means using additive manufacturing techniques, 3D printing. So, yeah.
Great stuff. Well, thanks for your time, Stephan.
I appreciate it.
Really, really useful information as well. Really look forward to seeing what happens with the Law brand, seeing what happens with your products, because this is just the beginning, I think. So.
We've been working on it for a while, but in terms of commercializing, getting it out to the world, it's a super exciting time. So cool. Appreciate you talking about it and taking an interest. It's really nice. So.
Yeah, I like. Just on that, I really like your approach, because you've really been working with Bikefitters to kind of get this project off the ground.
Yeah,
that makes total sense. It's kind of testament to that philosophy as well of like getting the fit right, getting it right for the individual, and making sure that they get the best product that they can get, rather than just another product that everyone can just kind of buy.
Yeah, we saw early just that Bikefitters are kind of the tip of the spear of the sport, right? They're seeing all the problems, they're optimizing performance, like they're just ground floor on what actually needs to happen. So getting Bikefitters into that testing loop and providing feedback has been essential to making the product what it is right now. So it's awesome.
All right, good
Cool,
stuff.
man.
Well, if people want to find out a little bit more about Lore, where can they find you?
Lore.cc.
Cool.
At Lore Cycle at Instagram is another good place. And yeah.
All right, good stuff, man.
Appreciate it, Wei. Thank you so much.
Take it easy.
All right.
Ciao. So, welcome to the podcast, John Higgins.
Yes, thank you.
From Bikefitr, is that right?
Under multiple hats.
Yeah.
Multiple hats. So, Australian, been in the USA for 18 years.
Yeah.
Got into fitting working for a national outdoor retail chain in the US. Well known to many, called REI. Not well known as a bike shop, but actually a very high volume bike shop, selling mostly to novices and people getting into cycling.
Yeah.
So sort of got exposed to people asking the obvious question, what size bike should I buy?
Yeah.
And I had as much idea as they did. I had my bike, but I didn't know what bike they should be on.
Yeah.
And I got invited to attend some Bikefit training to help understand bike fitting and bike sizing, and to help answer the customer's question of well, what size bike and what type of bike. And
was that back in Sorota days, or
so
training?
The training was with FitKit Systems.
Oh, really? Oh,
and so that was just 2 days, but it was an information action-packed 2 days.
Yeah.
And I became fascinated by the subject.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I wasn't a hardcore cyclist, I was a recreational cyclist. I'd sort of realised that I really knew nothing about that relationship between the bike and the body, and what adjustments could occur and what impact those adjustments had, you know, on the rider's functioning. And so that sort of set me off really on a quest to learn more about this topic.
Yeah.
I knew enough about the fact that Bikefit was kind of a thing when I bought a mountain bike and asked the shop to set it up for me, and they did a rough-in.
Yeah, yeah.
I knew that getting the right size was important, but I really didn't know the nuance and the depth that one could go into with it.
Yeah.
So after that initial training, I sort of got going in the local store, and really just measuring people up and assessing them physically and through questions to helping provide a more informed advice over what size, and that led to basic fitting. You know, just rough setting a seat height and a handlebar, maybe changing a stem.
And did you have someone else to kind of bounce ideas off, or were you kind of on
There
your
were a
own?
couple of sort of what I'd say old school fitters working in the store who had more fitting experience and had rules of thumb and guidelines and old wives' tales and things that were certainly very helpful. And gradually they moved on, and that left me. And I sort of read as much as I could. Big Steve Hogg fan, which was really the only thing written around then. This is like 15 years ago. Did further training with FitKit Systems, decided I knew enough to go out on my own, set up my own business, Bikefitr, locally.
Where are you based again?
And Salt Lake City, Utah.
There you go.
Yeah. Shortly after that, in doing further training with Chris at FitKit Systems, we talked about working together. So I have a background in corporate training and development. And he was interested in having somebody help with the bike fit education. And so we started talking together about me taking on that aspect of his business, but one thing led to another, and that was me acquiring the whole business of FitKit Systems, which was one of the pioneers of bike fit in the USA. And so I've become the third owner of FitKit Systems. And so today I run Bikefitr as the local personal services bike fit studio, and FitKit Systems as a product, education, equipment supplier into the industry, and of working hard to breathe new life and new products and new services into that,
You're
that
a man
organisation.
of many hats, it seems.
Too many hats at times.
Yeah. And you've recently taken on some kind of younger bike fitters as well, who you're training up through.
Yeah,
your
two extra guys working in my fit studio locally, partly to free me up to spend more time on the business development side of things and sourcing products. And
And how's that journey been going? it's kind of interesting becoming
yeah.
a teacher again and learning other people kind of take over.
It's given me a lot to think about in terms of teaching Bikefit, and what I think of as the core principles and a core process, and how to sort of layer on the skills, because I think certainly I've learnt that you can't learn it all at once, you can't learn it all in a short period of time. You've got to start with some basics and get experience and gradually layer in more and more and more. I'm a big believer in continuing education. Like each year myself, I will attend a course, ideally in person, or during COVID years take an online course. So I have a big personal emphasis on continuing to learn from other Bikefit educators and experienced practitioners. I'd like to see more fitters in the industry do that. I think there's too many out there who've done one course, said this is great, they've stopped there. They've got a lot of experience, but they haven't layered in more education and more nuance and more perspectives. And I think each time I go out and do a course with somebody else, I'll get, even if it's one idea that changes the way I do something for a customer, it's beneficial in my view.
Yeah, and I think that's it's been one of the really great things about coming here is actually talking to other bike fitters, even all different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Everyone has a slightly different perspective or how they would do things, and that kind of gets you questioning, what am I doing? Is that useful for me? Is that not? Oh, I haven't really thought about this in that kind of way before. And I was speaking to Lee Prescott from IBFI earlier about this, and creating pathways for kind of younger bike fitters to come into the industry, and how can we help support them in that kind of journey. I think I was probably in a similar kind of way to you. I was lucky enough to work or start working in a shop, and then they threw me into fitting bikes and trying to teach me how to kind of size a bike so that they could sell a bike and so on. Every bike they sold is sized. I didn't really know what I was doing, and so you go on this journey, but you suddenly learn a lot, and you're like, oh, that's how it feels, and and applying that knowledge to your own bike riding, you're like, oh, it feels so much better now. How did they, used to ride in that kind of way? And so there's a curiosity, but there's no defined kind of route. There is a very organic kind of process of just curiosity and trying to figure your way out. And I guess when you're young, you have a tenacity to kind of learn, but also you don't have to earn loads of money. You just kind of do it because you love it, right?
Exactly. And I'm trying to speed up the learning process for the 2 fitters I've taken on this year, so that they don't have to take sort of 15 years to get to the same point I'm at now, that it's much more condensed. But knowing that I couldn't sort of overwhelm them with too much information at the outset either, and that they have to make some of their own mistakes and have some of their own learning experiences, and mess up a few times and maybe have a few unhappy customers as part of sort of rising to a higher level.
But they also bring their own personalities in, don't they, and their own knowledge.
They do, and their own personality and their own sort of background and history and experience and complementary skills. Like one's got a strong background in coaching and personal training and has an excellent eye for movement. One has extensive mechanical experience and can work on a bike super quickly and efficiently. And what I'm finding is that not only are they learning from me, but I'm learning from them because they've got those background, skills, experience that are a little different to mine. And so that's a big plus.
My colleague Matt is a bit like that as well. So I took him on probably 2 years ago or so on. But he has a background in music, so he uses his ear probably more than anything else as well. And so he'll start getting me to think about, listening to the pedal stroke and, oh, can you hear the chain slap a little bit? And, oh, that definitely didn't sound so good. So, and it's a really interesting way of, using other senses to gauge that kind of improvement.
I think that's key. It's not just looking at a camera or looking at motion, but it's the listening to the sound of the resistance and the quality of the pedaling. It's an expression. A cyclist will make. It's a facial expression. Sometimes it's just looking at a raise of the eyebrow or a smile or a grimace. the non-verbal cues, I think, are important inputs, into the fitting process as well.
Absolutely, especially when we're in an age where everything seems to be going towards removing all those kind of responsibilities or inputs or sensory kind of responsibilities, as I call them. Like just downstairs there's a new, what do they call it? I think it's Cycle Dynamic Fit, or like it's part of the giant kind of bike fitting system.
Okay.
Downstairs, and like the key component of that is like, it's an AI algorithm. So you sit the rider on, you press the button, and zzz, it all comes out. And it was kind of interesting. There was someone there whilst I was watching who was looking at the rider, and he's not a bike fitter, but he knows a bit about bike fit, and so he was like, do you know the rider's sitting off to one side, but the computer's saying he's sitting in the middle, and they're like, no. It's like, no, he's actually sitting off to one side, and so, how much you trust, just the algorithm, whereas, if you can really tune into those senses, what does it sound like, what do you see, what does the rider feel, those are all also really important parts of the process of determining kind of what's a good fit and what's not. So.
Exactly. I think a key aspect is the ability to elicit information from the rider, to ask questions of them that they haven't thought to ask of themselves, essentially, and to sort of draw out some insight or some understanding. I've had that experience myself. I had Tony Cork come out to the US to teach a series of workshops for my benefit and that of others, and I was having him do a fit on me on my mountain bike. And obviously, as a bike fitter, I think I can solve my own fit problem. And I was struggling with a particular weight distribution issue, and was making a certain saddle adjustment that I thought would solve the problem. And Tony just had a different perspective, a broader perspective, and said, well, let's do this instead of that. And that solved the problem. So I was sort of stuck in my own paradigm of how I was trying to solve it. But having that external third party, I was like, well, let's think about it from this way. It's like, aha.
So maybe all bike fitters should end up teaching at some point. Maybe that's that's a pathway of both teaching others but also learning for yourself.
I think there's a lot to learn from each other, and we don't do that anywhere near well enough. We're sort of all in our own preoccupation and focus and frenzy of helping our customers. And there's a lot to gain from understanding how someone else does something or where they place emphasis.
And yesterday I bumped into two other bike fitters, Tim and Josh, who are both hog fitters. So I think Josh fits out in Australia with Steve in his shop. And Tim de Jong, he's based over in Belgium, but I think Josh has come over. He's been over here for 9 weeks or something like that. Like racing in Belgium, but also learning from Tim, just having that kind of mentoring process. And he described exactly that. He was like, I was feeling pretty good on the bike, but just Tim had just wanted to try something different and change his crank length, and he was suddenly like, I don't feel the same muscle fatigue as I was earlier. Like, he wasn't in pain, but it was just suddenly something got better, and it wasn't until someone else had suggested, why don't you try this? And it was just trying something different, which kind of made all the difference. So it's fascinating how we do get into our own heads, and it's the same for everybody. So all the bike riders that we see, they do have expectations and preconceptions about everything that they experience through their kind of bike riding, and actually coming to us is it's a difficult process because they have to confront all those expectations and be prepared to maybe see a different perspective.
And have a change. I mean, sometimes I'm concerned that people won't want to accept a recommendation or adjustment, but what I've found for the most part is that people don't show up for a bike fit unless they're already prepared to take some advice or try something a little different.
They're already, or usually, like most of them.
Not always, but usually.
They're in that learning mindset, aren't they? Of like, I need someone else to kind of help me out. So. Actually, we've said it before, but yeah, the hardest fits I find are always the ones that turn up and go, well, I don't really know why I'm here. Someone told me to come.
Yes. Yeah, I'd say my biggest failure in terms of an unhappy customer was someone who was so coerced into coming into a fit by other people and really showed up very reluctantly. And just had a closed mind. Had a sort of a mixture of both a closed mind and an unrealistic expectation of the outcome.
That was quite funny, actually. So we're, just for the listeners on here, we're actually on the Law shoe stand, and I was talking to Tyson from Law earlier about a funny experience he had with a customer who came by with his partner and really wanted to buy his partner a pair of Law shoes. And well, they didn't speak English, so they had a conversation in a different language, but there was a lot of negotiating, and she finally got on the scanner, and like everything happened, and then it was kind of got to the end, and she was like, I don't really want it. Because it wasn't her decision. It was, you know, someone else had tried to, like, you know, get her to have this shoe.
Great analogy.
So yeah, I guess it happens in all our decision making. So.
I mean, I think we'd all like to see more cyclists experience a bike fit and the benefits of it. But the reality is there's only a percentage that will, you know, be receptive to it or perceive there's benefit. I mean, there's probably more doubters than there are believers in the wider cycling universe. So, you know, we're there for the believers.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can't help everybody, but you know, for those who want a bike fit, you know, we can help them. So yeah, since we're on the Law stand, we should probably talk about Law shoes as well.
We certainly can.
So tell us about your involvement with
my new favourite cycling shoe.
Very good. You get a tick.
Really a coincidental kick-off to that, in that Law are based in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I am, and Stephan, the founder, just strolled into my fit studio one day and said, is there someone here I could talk to about cycling?
He just knocked on the door.
He just knocked on the door. And I said, oh, absolutely, I have so much to say on that topic. And so we set up a subsequent meeting, and we was probably me talking for 2 hours solid on cyclists, the sort of feed issues people come in for a fit to address, the limitations with current shoes, the frustrations with shoes, the sort of modifications we might currently do, where the shortcomings were. And that basically set off an engagement with Law to sort of provide a Bikefitter's perspective on cyclists' foot issues, and not just foot issues, but just comfort in general, and also performance, and where we felt there was energy loss and where there was opportunity for gain, and pedaling technique, and so the sort of the whole gamut in a way. And that led to me becoming a prototype product tester for Law, and so both with the Law 1 and then the Law 2. Getting some of my own bike fit customers into the Law shoes and having their experience and getting their feedback. You know, for me personally, I've found the shoes have fitted me well. You know, a lot of fitters come into fitting because of their own issues with bike fit and their own quest to solve a problem. And I wouldn't categorically say I was one of those, but if I've had a fit issue cycling, it's been foot related, in that I have a triangular foot with the narrow part in the heel and the wide part at the toes. So sort of more of a natural foot shape versus a squished in toe foot shape. And you know, I'm a competitive age group cyclist in road and mountain, and I've had multiple events where during a race I've had to get off the bike, take the shoes off, pour water over them, run through a stream, put my feet under a cooler at an aid station. I mean, these are not performance enhancing experiences, and definitely cost time and, you know, positioning. And so you know, I've had my own share of foot frustrations with cycling, and And really, I'm also a Lake dealer, and certainly when Lake came out with the CX201, you know, that was my first savior.
Yeah, what a shoe.
Like, you know, and I've tried multiple models of Lake, but it really wasn't until the 201 came out with the really wide square toe box that I found, you know, the closest thing to cycling shoe happiness. But the Law's kind of the next level up because of the fully custom form-fitting nature. So I've had fabulous experience and results with, you know, both models of Law shoe that I've experienced. For me, they've been a game changer in terms of both comfort and energy capture and power transfer. Because it's a downside of the CX201 in the Lake, it's a very soft shoe, and so there's a fair bit of energy loss in the pedaling.
Yeah, it's a stiff shoe, but the upper.
Stiff underneath, but very soft upper.
Yeah.
So, you know, I spent 6 months riding side by side, Lake Law, one on each foot. So a lot of side by side.
Literally a Lake on one shoe.
Literally,
1 foot. And,
yes. Literally, actually, physically. So the initial prototypes in Law were just a single side build.
Right.
And so we'd just be pedaling a Law on 1 foot. So I had a lot of side by side comparison time.
All right.
And just before I went to like a full pair of Laws, and could definitely, you know, had a lot of chance to experience foothold and security and movement, you know, both forward, back, up, down, side to side. So yeah, I mean, for me, the experience has been positive, and it's been interesting to contribute. And I think the thing, I was talking to Stephan over lunch, you know, one of the reasons I've stayed involved with Law is what I see as their commitment to quality first and a successful outcome. They're not trying to just get a product out there to make money. It's like, let's get the technology right, let's get the end user's experience, you know, really good. There's been a mind-blowing amount of technical problem solving going on behind the scenes, and some pretty heavy intellectual horsepower at work to solve those problems across multiple design, manufacturing, production fronts.
So much of it is groundbreaking, even from the construction side of things. It's 3D printed, it's kind of carbon molded, you have to have a scan of your foot made, so you know everything is completely bespoke around your particular foot.
And I've had an amazing window into the behind the scenes of a startup technology groundbreaking thing. So I'm not an employee of Law, but I'm on the inside communication channels, and have had exposure to all the issues that have come up and the incredible efforts to resolve those issues and move ahead. And you know, something might have gone 9/10 of the way to a solution and then came to a stop, and it was like back to square one and starting again down a different pathway.
But I think it kind of epitomizes all those things of you know, the companies that we kind of value within the bike industry are always like kind of companies which are based on like the passion for the sport, really. I still hold firm that probably no one really gets into cycling to earn mega bucks at all, because there's just no money in cycling. So we do it all because, you know, we like riding bikes.
I mean, I say bike fitting is a business of passion over profit.
Sure.
I mean, we're trying to make some money and stay alive in the
process,
in the economic capital world. But it's definitely passion driven. I think across a lot of aspects of the bike industry.
And just because of all the experiences we've gone through, like the pain and discomfort we've had was riding bikes leads you to kind of try and resolve those and then pass that on to other people. But I'm really excited about the Law project. Just conceptually as well, it just kind of changes how a shoe is kind of thought about in terms of cycling.
I mean, we've gained some great insights from other bike fitters who are sort of early prototype testers and just bringing perspectives. And you know, one was Chris Balzer in Minnesota in the USA, just really quickly identifying it as a sort of a top-down orthotic versus a bottom-up orthotic.
Right.
And just like that, just sort of clarified, you know, a simple way to think about how the shoe works.
So for people who haven't seen the Law, it's It's kind of got a shoe shape to it, but it kind of goes high up the ankle. How would you say?
Higher than a traditional shoe and much stiffer on that dorsal surface. So typically if someone's in a softer shoe and they're trying to sort of get more anchored in the shoe, they'll just crank down the straps or dials more, and then often put a lot of pressure directly over the top of the instep and sort of impacting on nerve and blood supply.
Top of the foot.
Your top of the foot, whereas with the Law, there's a full sort of relief channel down that top ridge of the foot, and so the pressure is more coming in on each side, sort of below and to the front of the ankles. So it's approaching the foothold in a different way to a traditionally made shoe.
There's been some interesting discussions around whether or not you still need any arch support or proprioception in the Law, because it does hold the foot around the ankle much more, and so that controls the movement of the foot in a way that normally isn't controlled. And usually, so Balzer's kind of analogy of like kind of top down rather than bottom up. But do you still feel there's advantages or benefits to kind of having a top and bottom kind of?
I think that's going to be pretty individual. Probably less of a need, like in summary, and I think there'll be some people that do want a little bit more push from underneath in terms of a direct arch support, and others that won't. I mean, the philosophy with the arch support in the Law too is very much along the lines of more of a neurological stimulator rather than a structural support. So just a message signaler from the feet to the brain about how to remind the feet to sort of perk up in the shoe and not collapse.
Yeah, because the initial Laws had was it a Noboso insole, which is basically made up, it's like a flat insole but with lots of little peaks.
Little textures
like
on it.
Yeah,
So the Law one has that, which, and part of the philosophy there is there's a lot of little nerve stimulators. There's a lot of nerve receptors on the sole of the foot, and this surface on the bottom of the Law one with all these little bumps, little nobbins, I'm not sure what the technical word
nodules.
is. You've got sort of stimulating those nerves in the foot, sending signalling to the brain, and that combined with the very rigid support from the top of the foot each side of the ankle served to keep the foot in a really good sort of natural postural position. What we found with the Law too was that extra stimulation was too much in combination with the arch support.
Right.
And because the Law 2 has less top-down structural rigidity, we thought it would be a good idea to add the option for a direct arch support. But we found the combination of the arch support and that textured surface was like too much stimulation. I certainly did personally, and so we've gone back to a smooth surface there. And the good thing with the arch module in there is that it can be moved around similar to a G8 style, so it can be repositioned, it can be eliminated altogether.
Cool.
So I think it'll come down to a little personal experimentation.
Yeah, as always, like everything's always personal when it comes to anything bike fit or foot related, things like that. So it's always good to have that kind of option and know that there are options out there. So
yes.
Yeah. Well, excited to see what's going to happen. I think the show's closing down, so I think it's our cue to like kind of
There's
wrap
a
it up.
lot of background noise going on.
But yeah, I think it's probably beer o'clock for a lot of people.
Yes, here we are on day three and the final day of the business aspect of Eurobike, and the bell has rung for party time.
So thanks again for joining me, John. It's been a real pleasure having you on, and appreciate your time.
Delightful to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good stuff. All right, let's wrap it up there. See you guys.
Suffering from numb hands, tingling toes, and any other persistent discomforts when you ride? These are all signs that your bike fit could be improved. If you're bike fit curious, get in touch with Way or Matt by emailing info@foundation.fit or finding them on Instagram @FDN_bikefit. Finally, for all your bike servicing needs, custom dream bike or hand-built wheels, go to www.frequencycycleworks.com or find me on Instagram @frequencycycleworks. Until next time, keep on spinning.